Hey guys, in this week's batch drop, we got some pretty interesting cymbals. I'm going to go through them now. And as of the posting of this video, these cymbals are available. So head over to reveriedrums.com and pick one up if you like it. So first off, I have in my main position a 22-inch Reverie prototype Lab cymbal. This is probably the prototype that I took through the most iterations and kind of made it all funky, did tons of topography to it. So if I kind of zoom up, you can really see the dimension to this cymbal. It had probably 3 or 4 different iterations before I completed it. The profile on it is fairly tall, and the idea was to really go with something that had a nice aggressive sound. When you dig in, you can kind of get it to open up and roar at you, but when you're playing on the stick, you got a sweeter, crisper sound that can actually cut through the music. So check it out. It's got a medium loose tension to it, so it kind of has a little bit of a wave and a wobble to it. So when you dig in, you can kind of get the crash to open up fast. The drawback with loose tension is that it can feel a little bit sluggish to play. So the way that I offset that is with a little bit of a taller profile and a little bit more stiffness up near the bell. So the cymbal will give the stick back to you, and it's not going to be so tiring when you're playing up-tempo speeds on it. So you can really, it kind of is the best of both worlds. Like a really stiff, tight cymbal will feel a little bit aggressive, and it'll be harder to get it to open up at lower volumes, but it'll give you tons of rebound. And then the reverse, when it's too loose, it'll have this warm, gushy, awesome feel on the crash, but then when you start trying to dig in, it will almost like receive the stick and kind of, it's like playing on a pillow. It really is like the difference between playing on a floor tom and a snare drum in terms of how much it's tensioned. And it's harder, obviously, to play fast stuff on a floor tom. Same kind of concept applies with cymbal tension. So this one is kind of in the middle of being a medium loose, but also still having enough clarity to rebound for you. So I like that cymbal a lot. Next up, we have on my left here, this is a 22-inch Tributary, and it is really, 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 really thin. It weighs 2,026 grams. I don't hardly ever make cymbals that are 22 inches that weigh this little. And the reason I did it with this one is because it came in as a very, very thin blank, so I didn't have much room. It's got basically a polished top, so I haven't really laid weight off the top. I've laid a little bit of weight off the underside of the bell, as you can see there, maybe. But it's, yeah, top and bottom pretty much unlathed, been polished, and then I've added a really heavy patina. The idea is just to create control in a super thin cymbal, and I think I achieved it with this one. Yeah, so I dig it a lot. It's kind of, because of the weight, obviously, it's got a thin sound. The splash opens up on it pretty fast. The crash is kind of, it billows pretty quick, and as you dig in, it starts to kind of come up to the level of the stick. But to me, at least sitting behind it, I'm not hearing it overpower the stick definition. It's not like you would play this in a rock gig as your main ride, but it is something that would give you a little bit more control if you like really thin cymbals. So big fan of that one. That's the 22-inch Tributary, 2,026 grams. Then we got this guy. This is a 19.5 Prism cymbal. This is very, very, very reminiscent of the Tim Metz Old K project that I did months back. And it's a super interesting cymbal that has this hook at the edge, and then it kind of flattens off. It's got all these weird hums and tones, but it's just kind of a magic cymbal. And Tim sent me that cymbal. I did a whole series of videos on it. You can look up on my channel. And I did a clone of it, but then I also, well, let me back up. I don't like the word clone. Maybe this is something for a different video, but homage. We'll call it an homage. I did an homage to that cymbal, and kind of my version of it. I kind of tweaked some of the designs because I didn't love the original Cymbal as is. It was very ornery and finicky. You had to play it just right to get it to speak in a pleasant way. But this is kind of my homage to that homage. And it's a Prism series, which means it's brilliant finish. So it's like my old K, but not aged. So an old K, but made in the 50s or 60s or whenever it was made. And so it's got a little bit more clarity and brightness to it. It's got a little bit of a hook out at the edge, smaller hand-formed bell, and then it's got these concentric band lathing, so connected circles of lathing that are real deep in the grooves over top of that brilliant finish. So it gives it a really interesting dynamic. It's got a darkness to it, it's got a brightness to it, it's got complexity, it's got smoothness. It's kind of got a lot going on. Big fan of this one. Nice crash to it. The stick doesn't get overpowered. Yeah, dig that one a lot. That's one of the Timothy Roberts Prism series, 1,666 grams. Next up, we have a 22-inch Labyrinth. This one weighs 2,357 grams. Slightly smaller hand-formed bell. Tall profile like these have. This one has kind of a nice smoothness and cleanness to it. Usually my Labyrinths are real aggressive. This one is, the aggression level is kind of buried, so it's a little bit more clean in terms of my typical Labyrinths, but still got that smoky, warm, kind of mellow thing, and kind of that round ka sort of sound, especially when you play it with certain kinds of sticks and use the Bill Stewart grip, which is very fun to do. Let's check it out. Yeah, big fan of that one. 22-inch Labyrinth, 2,357 grams. All right, next up we have the last of the Reverie cymbals in this batch. This one is a 21-inch Reverie prototype foundation. It's got a little bit of a taller shape for the foundation series. So I was kind of going for clean, clear sounding, but tall enough to have a little bit of that umbrella complexity, umbrella shape complexity. And it's very mild in the mix, but you got kind of this clean and this dark thing going on at the same time. So it's got a little bit more dimension than if it was just kind of a clean cymbal. Those, to me, tend to be a little one-dimensional, a little bit boring to play. So the idea was like, how clean could I make a cymbal, but give it enough intrigue to be inviting to play? Yeah, this is the kind of cymbal that just gets the point across, whatever you're trying to play, but it's not boring. So it's kind of the ultimate in there, in my opinion. All right, so the last two in this batch are very interesting. I like these a lot. So first off, we got ourselves a 24-inch Landmark. I haven't been making many 24s lately. This one has medium shape, I'd say, and it weighs 2,931 grams. This is kind of the Landmark, or the original Landmark cymbal was a 24-inch. Oh, actually it was a 22 first before it was a 24, but the idea is aiming at the Brian Blade cymbal sound. So this is a little bit heavier than a Brian Blade sound. I'm going to use the Rick Dior stick because it's got the tip that Brian typically uses. But yeah, warm, mellow, opens up, interesting. It's got kind of everything that you could want in a big cymbal. dig that one a lot. And last but not least, we got ourselves a Swish, a 22-inch landmark Swish weighing 2,025 grams. So real thin for a Swish. But the thing about Swishes is they are very aggressive because of that upturned edge. And so I typically hate Chinas and Swishes and all that kind of, and pangs, whatever you want to call them. I typically hate them. So naturally I was like, I want to figure out how to make one that I would love. So the idea is the flange, instead of being really upturned, is rather flat and pretty mellow. So it doesn't upturn a lot, which allows in more sustain. Then you have the 6 equidistant rivets, which kind of calms down the sustain, and you get a really nice sounding cymbal that obviously still has tons of trashiness and aggression, but it's a little bit more mild sounding, so you could use it in acoustic settings. A lot of my Swishes actually have even less of a flange than this one, and I have it even in a zone where I can kind of like fairly easily bend that flange. It's not super hard and stiff, and the point of that being I don't want it to be this like super aggressive in your face, no life to it, kind of dead sounding hammer that just hits you over the head whenever you play it. So a really big fan of that one. And so that is this batch. So like I said at the beginning, as of the posting of this video, it is available on reveriedrums.com. So head over if you want to pick one up. And if you're just catching this video later on in the process and they're all gone, please still let me know which one was your favorite. Please drop a comment below on that. Hit the subscribe and the bell if you want notifications on future videos. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Timothy Roberts. See you next time. All right, guys, as a little postscript to these batch drop videos, I wanted to show you guys the kit that I used. It is 2 drums that are the same circumference. So we got a 15-inch snare drum, 15 by 5, and yes, 15 by 5. Ribbon mahogany. This is a brand new drum we made. The kick drum is an old Ludwig field snare drum. So it's a 15 by 11, 15 by 12 maybe, that we restored. Someone had taken the single tension hardware and sprayed gold hardware, gold paint on the hardware. And I was going to strip that off, but it just looked so cool. I was like, we got to keep this thing. So single tension drum. It's got 10 lugs. It's funky. It's got a low tuning to it, so I can actually bury the beater and get a great sound out of it. But I can also play the beater off the head and get a nice open sound. I've used this on so many jazz gigs recently. It is a really killer sound. And I recently purchased a bunch of old vintage snare drums that I'm going to convert into small bass drums, and we're going to offer them eventually. So if you're interested in a sound like this, hit me up. We can actually, we've got the stuff to make them. This is my personal one, and what I love about this combination is that there's wildness to each drum. There's a wildness to a 15-inch snare drum. This is an 8 lug, if I didn't say it, so it's got kind of this ringy open thing, but I've got really wide snares on it too, so the wide snares allow it to have kind of this like hissy, breathy sustain and kind of tail to the sound. And yeah, I love kind of the out of control nature of drums like this, because they give you so much more sound to play with. You can really play a little bit more spacious and allow the sound of the drums to fill up that space. You're not feeling like you got to play so fast and do a bunch of chops, because the drums aren't really made for that. They're not really set up for that. So you got these nice, big, open, ringy sounds on the snare. And it's still ringing. Look at that, it's still ringing. The tone on the kick drum has this, almost like it has a gate to it. And there's a wrinkle on the front head, so there's not even enough tension on one of these single tension lugs to even get the tension out. So it's got a looseness in one of the heads, which is kind of killing the sustain at a certain point. Or you can bury the beater. Nice and tight, punchy, short, quick. I love these kinds of sounds. So anything that's funky and weird and a little bit different is what I look for in drums, and it's a lot of what we make at Reverie on the drum side of things. Is we're doing kind of funky designs, unique designs to get different kinds of sounds. With the cymbals, it's all about vibe for me. It's like creating a nice vibey sound. I'm not usually going for super clean or like ultra versatile. I'm going for something that's inspiring to play. And it's the same concept with the drums. Something that has like a quirky thing to it. Like it's a 15-inch snare drum, so it's got extra ring. Or it's a weird field snare that's been restored, but it's not tuned evenly, so it's got a weird funkiness to it and a gated sound. All that kind of stuff is like, that's what I love in drum sounds. So that's what I love, but I would love to know what you guys think, so please drop a comment below about the drums here. Is this the kind of thing you would find yourself playing, or do you find it too weird? Or have you ever even heard of this concept of taking an old field snare and converting it into a kick drum? Or even a kick drum that's 15 inches. That's like insanely small. I've made 14-inch kicks. Well, actually, I've made a 13-inch kick one time. It was a little bit silly. The 14-inch ones are borderline silly. 15-inch ones, it's like magic. There's something about a 15-inch kick drum that I absolutely love. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below.